This video is going to be covering example 1, and hopefully at this point you've already seen a couple other videos on surface area. Maybe you've actually already seen a video on example 1 where I used the formula to find the surface area. This video is going to find the surface area using a net. So if you can look at this diagram here on the left, we have the solid. On the right, this is the net of this solid. So before we get too into the problem, I want to be able to say what kind of solid this is. So it's a prism, but more specifically, it's a triangular prism. Now, if you imagine unwrapping this triangular prism, it's going to create an image that looks kind of like what we have here on the right. So if I look at this picture on the left, I have a triangle on the front and a triangle that's kind of in the back. That gives me triangles D and E in my net. Now again, if I look over here, I have like kind of on the left it looks like a rectangle, and then on this right space I have another rectangle, and then on the bottom there's a third rectangle. That gives me rectangles A, B, and C. So to use a net, we need to be able to identify these values that we have on this diagram and place them on here so that we can find the areas of these different regions. Now when it comes to surface area is going to equal the sum of the areas of all the faces. So the faces are the surfaces on the solids. So let's continue by identifying all these missing blanks here on the net diagram. So first of all, if we look at this picture, you can see how the triangle in front is a certain distance from the triangle in the back. Specifically, it's 12 away. And if I come over to this diagram, the triangle up top is 12 units away from the triangle on the bottom. That value is going to go over here. So right there, I'm going to put a 12. Now, if I unwrap the rectangles that surround the triangle, I can see that I have this edge here is 5, and this edge here is 5 as well. That corresponds to this 5 and this 5. So if I took this rectangle here and wrapped around the triangle, it's going to map onto this piece here, and this 5 would land right on this piece here. Now this third side that is not labeled yet is actually this third side right here, and that's going to be a 6. Now if you remember, I called A, B, and C rectangles. That means whatever I have up here is also going to be the same amount down here. So now, to find surface area, you need to remember it's the sum of the areas of all the faces. So if I can find the area of A, B, C, D, and E, I just add them up, and that's my total surface area. So let's start by finding the area of A, B, and C. So A, because it's a rectangle, it's going to be base times height. So we have 5, and because this is a 12, that's also a 12 here. So this will be 5 times 12, and if we multiply that, we're going to get 60. I'm going to circle it, so I know to look for this value. This rectangle is going to be 6 times 12. That's going to give me 72. C is the same size as A, so it's going to be the same thing, 5 times 12, which again is going to be 60. Now we need to find the areas of triangles D and E. So I'm going to actually draw a larger triangle because it'll be easier for me to mark it up. So when I mark it up, I have a 5, a 5, and a 6. So whether you're looking at this triangle over here or if I'm focusing on this one, I actually think it's easier to look at this one, just redraw the triangle. Now for the area of a triangle, it's going to be 1/2 base times height. So if I look at this picture, clearly there's no height. So I'm going to drop down a perpendicular to get a height. I'm going to label it with an H. Because this triangle is isosceles, this height, when I drop down the perpendicular, it cuts this opposite side exactly in half. So this is a 3, and this is a 3. So now I have a right triangle. How do you find a missing side in a right triangle? Hopefully you guys recognize it's your Pythagorean theorem, and this 5 is the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle, so I'm going to have 5 squared is equal to h squared plus 3 squared. If you need to, pause the video so that you can solve for h on your own. and hopefully you get the same thing. It's going to be 4. Or maybe you possibly recognize that this triangle here is a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. So now let's find the area of this triangle. So that's going to be 1/2 base times height. The base of this triangle is a 6, and the height is 4. We just solved for that. And after you multiply these values together, we're going to get 12. So I'm going to put a 12 up here with the D and a 12 down here with the E. So now we're ready to actually add the areas of all the faces. So surface area is going to be 60 plus 72 plus 60 plus 12 plus 12. And if you get your calculator out and add all those values together, you should get 216, and the units are centimeters squared. If you have any questions, either for me or something that you might like to quiz yourself with later, please use this column over here to write down any questions or any other thoughts that you have. If you haven't already done so, please complete the summary on the second page.